Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Doesn't matter what I do with my hair today, it seems like it's always going to look like a mess, so we're just gonna deal with it. I didn't want to tie it up right now. Today I am filming a bit of a bookish video. I wanted to talk about some books that I really love, particularly the books that I would read a million times. And why? Because I want to do a little bit more content on this channel that is a bit more focused on my favorite hobbies, because obviously I do have like a hobbies playlist where I do like crafts, all kinds of weird things. I am going to be phasing that out slowly over, you know, the first probably 3-4 months of this year, and I want to focus more on specifically books and reading and things like that, and gaming, because I love video games just as much as I love books. So I kind of want to focus on those things a little bit more on my channel, and I figured I would start strong with the books that I would read a million times, have probably read a million times, and share those with you to hopefully get you to read them if you haven't already. They're not like crazy, out of this world, never heard before books, but you know, if you haven't read them, 100% recommend them. Let's dive right in. It's not a very long list. I've got this like area here that just is a huge cowlick, and it doesn't matter what I do with it, it always looks like shit. Also, my regrowth is getting so long. It's so exciting. Look at this shit. A few more months, maybe 6 months, and I'll cut most of this blonde off. Do you care? No, that's not the point of this video. Anyway, starting off strong with one of my favorite books and favorite authors of all time, anything by Raymond E. Feist. He is cream of the crop for me. Fantastic. I love his books. I have read so many of them. Not all of them, nowhere near all of them, but I have read so many of them, especially the first 3 quite a few times. It is actually on my bucket list to read all 30 of his like Rift War big books, big books, big series, big things. Anyway, to read all 30 of those is like a big thing for me to achieve. It's like a genuine goal for me. So anything by him is fantastic. I would recommend you start reading his books. I used to collect them all secondhand. They're actually very hard to find a lot of the time secondhand, but it was such a fun thing. I can't wait to do it again when we get some space in a house. Specifically though, my first ever Raymond E. Feist book was Darkness at Sethanen, which is funny because it's actually book 3 in the Rift War saga. I didn't know that. I still do this to this day. I pick books by their covers, so I was literally just in a bookstore. Actually, no, I wasn't. I don't think I brought this book for myself. I'm pretty sure I had it brought for me as a present, but still, it has the most gorgeous cover. My version does. It's just a black cover with a dragon on the front that's like a reddy gold tint. It's so pretty. As soon as I opened it, I was like, this is my shit. And let me tell you, it is indeed my shit. It's so good. It's the first time I ever experienced a book with like change of perspective as well, where you hear from different points of view, different characters, and different storylines all running like concurrently that kind of meld together in different places, and I just thought that was absolutely fascinating. I genuinely think I was probably about 12 the first time I read this book, and I have read it so many times since. It introduced me to his books as a whole, and then I introduced them to Mark, and now we read them together. It's kind of just snowballed into this really big thing in my life. It is also the book that inspired me to want to write my own book. So obviously haven't finished that all these years later, have not published anything yet, but again, that is a goal, and all of that is because of The Darkness at Sethanen. So if you're gonna read anything from this list, I put this one in first because it is my biggest, best, baddest book. Solid alliteration there. If you're gonna take anything from this book, please try Raymond E. Feist's books. Obviously, I believe his first one is Magician, or depending on how you look at it, The Magician's Apprentice, but honestly, I read A Darkness at Sethanen first, and it still made total sense. Obviously, there's a little bit of background on characters that you don't really have, but it's not anything groundbreaking that makes the book not make sense. So if you want to start with that book, 100% go hard. I'd recommend it. It's a fantastic book. I've been eating crackers that are really salty, and now my lips are like... Okay, next one, and this one's really hard because I always butcher his name and I talk about him all the time. Yes, I have googled it so many times and I still can't say it right, but anything by Khaled Hosseini, but specifically The Kite Runner. Now, like I said, I talk about these books all the time because I really, really love them. They're all, like, the 3 books that I've read of his are The Kite Runner, and The Mountains Echoed, and I'm flaking out. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I had to look it up because it's in my little reading list because I read them last year. No, not last year, 2024. Haven't quite gotten used to the fact that we've changed year yet, but there's The Kite Runner and The Mountains Echoed and A Thousand Splendid Suns. Now, A Thousand Splendid Suns is really good. It's a really, really close second to me to The Kite Runner. I think The Kite Runner just has this like little special place in my heart because I read it first when I was in school, and it kind of was the first book that I had read, because again, I was quite young. I was probably like 14, 15 maybe, and it was the first book that I had read because I wasn't really into reading big back then. It shocks you. It's a very like out there book. It has very adult themes, very dark themes, and it was the first book that I read that kind of showed me like books can really move you emotionally properly, like, and actually really instill some good morals and values and messages in them. I remember reading it in class and immediately being like, I've got to get me a copy of this book so that I can read it again. And I have read it so many times since, and I have it. It's one of those books that I have decided after reading it again in 2024 that I will always have it in my collection in some way, whether that is a physical form of the book, which I do have a secondhand version at the moment, or whether I buy it on my Kindle just so that I have it on there. Hello, chicken. Jeepers. But it's a book that I will always have around. I loved it so much. I have a quote from the book tattooed on my wrist. It is the "for you 1,000 times over" quote, and I have each word written in chicken. She's trying to chase lizards and almost pushed you guys off the shelf. Hello, chicken. You're so excited this morning. Can you chase lizards somewhere else? There are not any in here. No, there's not. Mwah. Off you go. Anyway, as I was saying, my tattoo is the quote "for you 1,000 times over," and I have each word tattooed in a different family member's handwriting. So that, I think, it's a really big thing for me. That book really does. I think every time I read it, I cry. Every time I read it, it reinforces that message to it. There she goes. To me of, you know, just how important family is and keeping your promises is. And I actually genuinely thought when I first read this book, and for a few years afterwards, that it was an autobiography. Like, I thought it was a guy's actual life that he had written about. It took me so long to discover that it was a story because it's just so well written. Anyway, I can go on about this book specifically for like weeks, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Okay, the next two sit on like the same sort of wavelength. So the next one I put was Tom Felton's Beyond the Wand. Now, this was another one that I read for the first time really, really recently. I believe it was 2025, 2024, it's 2024. You're gonna have to deal with me doing that for the first few videos of the new year, okay? Everyone takes some time to adjust. But I read it for the first time in 2024, absolutely fell in love with it. I have always loved Tom Felton. I loved his portrayal of Draco. I've loved him in other movies. I also just think he's a really cool person. I had the biggest crush on him as a child, and I will happily admit that because I'm not ashamed. But reading that book really put into perspective for me what he's gone through in his life and why he loves Harry Potter so much, because I know you see it all over the internet. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, grow up, move on, let it go, blah, blah, blah. But when you read that book, it really does tell you exactly what being on that set and being around some really good, influential people did for him in his life. And I think he just writes so beautifully, but also he's so humble and raw about everything. It just, I don't know. There's something about that book that really just, it makes my heart sad to read what he's gone through and everything he's dealt with, but it also just makes it really, really warm because he's still come out of everything as a good person. And it's just, it's one of those things when you read like a celebrity's book, especially one that you're really into, or you watch like a documentary, docu-series, whatever it is on them, it can really open your eyes to who they are. And I think this one was just one of those great books that kind of confirmed for me that he is the type of person that I thought he is. And he's funny. Like, you can read this book and actually have some really good giggles, so I know that I'll read this many, many more times. Following on from that one, I am going to say the Harry Potter series, but specifically The Order of the Phoenix. That is my favourite book in the series. It always has been. Now, I know that people are going to come, people in my real life are going to be like, oh my god, yeah, she still loves Harry Potter, because yes, I was that kid. I was like painfully in love with Harry Potter. My whole life revolved around it. I had all the merch, I watched the movies all the time, always carried a book with me. I was that kid, was the Harry Potter kid. And you know what, that's fine, I'm not ashamed of that. Do I still love it? Absolutely, but for very, very different reasons now. And I know another side of the internet is going to be like, how can you support Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling and all of those things? And for me, you guys aren't going to like this answer, but I can separate the work from the artist. And this work specifically came out well before all of her views and opinions did. So for me, my love of Harry Potter very much is a nostalgic thing, because it was such a big part of who I was growing up. When I read the books, I instantly, like a lot of other little girls, took a liking to Hermione and decided I wanted to be just like her, you know? I wanted to be powerful and strong and smart and just really excel in everything that I did. So yes, when I was growing up, I wanted to be the best in school. I wanted to try hard, because to me that was being just like Hermione Granger, you know? And I think that built who I am as a person, because still, even though I don't aspire to be Hermione Granger anymore, I still work hard. I still want to be the best in any field that I'm in and all those kind of things. So it definitely shaped me as a person. I also just, like, growing up, I am very, very open about the fact that I struggle with my mental health, and Harry Potter was always one of the things that I turned to when I was down, when I was sad, when I needed a safe space or somewhere to escape to. If everything was just getting a little bit too loud, I would always go back to reading Harry Potter, and that to me it was my safe space. It was my happy place, you know? So that for me just brings so much more to this book series than what the book series is actually about, if that makes sense. Obviously, I really enjoy the story. I wouldn't have read it so many times if I didn't, but for me, my lasting love for it is very much attached to my childhood and my teenage years, rather than, you know, still the characters or the lore or anything like that. The more you read these books, because I've read these books a lot, the more you read them, the more you will realize that the writing isn't actually fantastic. Obviously, I think I'm like trying to say this kindly, but I also want to get like my thoughts across, if you know what I mean. But the more you read the books, the more like plot holes and weird things come up that you notice, you know, like name changes, order changes, holes in the story. And so I am gonna say that I think everybody, especially in my generation, has read Harry Potter, heard of Harry Potter, seen it. But I do just want to kind of reinforce the fact that they're not actually all particularly well written or anything like that. Some of them do have, especially Prisoner of Azkaban, don't come for me on that one, there's issues in that book. But yeah, so my love is not for the writer or the writing. It is still very much for the characters, but it's that nostalgia feeling, it's that childhood, it's that safety that comes along with it. And I do still read it every once in a while. I actually think I haven't read it in about, I want to say 5 years, which is a very, very long time for me, because I used to read that shit on repeat every July. Every single July, because it's winter and I get winter blues. It's my birthday and I want to have a good time. Every single year in July I would read the Harry Potter series, the full series, all the way through, and I actually haven't done that since we lived in our last rental, so it's got to be a minimum of 5-6 years. Maybe I should read it again. That's an idea. You know, as I said for the first two especially, I've said, you know, anything by Raymond, anything by Khaled. I would not, for this one, say anything by Jo, and that is because I have tried to read her books that have come after Harry Potter. I have read The Casual Vacancy twice. I still could not tell you what the fuck is going on in that book. And I've tried to read her like crime series that she published under the name Robert Galbraith. and it's just not for me. My brother actually brought me The Casual Vacancy and the first book because he knows how much I loved her and loved her writing, and I was so excited to read them. Like, for me, she was my favourite person in the whole world, writer-wise, you know, my favourite author, I should say. And I was so excited to dive into these books, and then I read them and I was just like, pretty mid, to be honest. Not even low-key mid, just like The Casual Vacancy. I abandoned that book like 4 times before I finished it for the first time, and then I read it again because I didn't know what the fuck was going on, and I still don't know what the fuck was going on in that book. So yeah, that she doesn't hit the same as she used to, definitely. The Harry Potter series is my rereadable series, but that's for my little brain and my little heart, and not because of the author or her continuing work or anything like that. Unfortunately, I think it would have been great if, you know, all of her work hit like Harry Potter. I think everybody kind of wants that. You know, it's the same as anything that goes really big, you know, like the Lord of the Rings series, and then all of his other work kind of hits really big because he's just so good at what he does. And unfortunately, I don't feel like that's the same for Jo. Gonna put that out there. Moving on to a book that absolutely crushed my soul, but I think it's important that everybody reads this book because it puts your life into some perspective, and I certainly needed it at the time. This book is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. Now, I again read this in 2024, I believe. 2024 was a really good year for books, guys. It was so good. And I talked so much about this in my wrap up for that year, and I've probably mentioned it in videos since, but it is so good. It's heartbreaking, and it makes you root for her so bad. And this one is a true story. It is not like The Kite Runner. This is actually her life tale of living in North Korea and escaping, and everything she went through and dealt with. And I said it in my wrap up video. Now, I'm talking too fast because I'm getting excited, but I said it in my wrap up video and I'll say it again. It is so hard to believe that one person can experience everything she's been through in one lifetime. And she wasn't even that old, so realistically it's like a quarter of a lifetime, you know? It's one of those books that is genuinely so harrowing that you want to not read anymore because it makes you so upset and so sad for her, but you're also so invested that you can't tear yourself away. Like, I sped through this book. This is another one of those books that I would love to have in my collection in some way forever. I don't have it currently. I would love to try and find a secondhand version of it because that's how I got my original version. Most of my books, by the way, are secondhand. I very, very rarely buy a new book. I just love book sales and bargains. She writes so well, and she just has so much to tell and so much to teach, and I don't even know if she knew that at the time of writing this book, but I learnt so much about myself and my life as well as her reading this book, because I thought I was going through some really rough times. I thought I was really fucking going through it, and then I read her book and it put in perspective my life and my issues and my problems. And I'm not saying that like my feelings are any less valid than hers. I'm just saying it made me a lot more grateful for the situation that I was in at the time, and I feel like having a book around that can do that for you is never ever a bad thing. So this one I probably should have put second, because after reading A Darkness at Sethanen, if you're going to read any book that I mentioned in this video, make it this one. Again, it's In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. Also, if I'm butchering her name, I'm really sorry. I'm doing my best, guys. Okay, last one for this video, and honestly, I'm hoping that 2026 brings me some more great books. Maybe I can make like an updated version of this video in a year or two, but last one for today is no surprise to anybody, I don't think, but it's Anything by John Green, specifically Looking for Alaska. Now, I have always loved The Fault in Our Stars. I read it when I was in high school. I believe I actually finished it. Okay, you might judge me for this one, but me and one of my friends were reading it at the same time, and we were sitting in our math class, which was in like a computer lab that day, and finished all my work, obviously. Probably, I don't know, I don't remember, probably not. Sitting underneath the computer desk, reading my book, and I finished it, and I just remember looking over at her and just sobbing. And I'm like a 16-year-old girl in the middle of her math class sobbing. And my teacher was there and she looks over at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just finished my book." And she said, "What are you reading?" And I held it up to her and she literally just went, "Ah, yeah, I get it." So it's very much a book that makes me feel seen. And I know I'm talking a lot about The Fault in Our Stars, but specifically, I think you guys should read Looking for Alaska. I've only read that book one time, but I've already added it to my list. You know what? Let's make it both of these, The Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska, because they're both just so good. Good's not even a good enough word, they're brilliant. Brilliant doesn't even feel like a good enough word, you know? I genuinely think I'm late to the party with loving John Green, but I genuinely believe he is one of my top 3 authors of all time. His work is just so good. The Fault in Our Stars, being someone who grew up sick and I'm still chronically ill, it is so easy to relate to the characters in that book, and he's written them in a way where you actually feel, or I actually feel, very understood. It's just so good. And I remember when I read it, I was actually struggling with my health a lot, and I remember sitting down and reading this point of view of this character and thinking, this is me, this is exactly how I feel, this is how I talk, you know, the humor, just every way that she deals with it, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I feel that. And then Looking for Alaska, I read for the first time in 2024. I have not read it since, but I know I will read it again. I just have more John Green books on my list to go through. And who knows, it might just be John Green across the board next time I update this video, but Looking for Alaska is, again, it's so a little bit harder for me to personally relate to, but you're still so invested in these characters. I talked about this in my wrap-up of 2024, but I think the book allows you to make your own decision on why things happen and how you get to the ending. Obviously, it's very finite in what the ending of the book actually is, but there is a bit of space for you to kind of play and figure out and decide why and what you want to happen. That's my interpretation of it anyway. I definitely know what I think happened to end that book and what the choices made were, but the fact that I can sit down with someone and have a discussion and their point of view be completely different to mine, that's what I love that books do for people. And it was just, this is one of those books that I sped through. I read this at lightning speed for me because I just could not look away. It was so good. So that's it for this video. Those are my 6 books/authors, because they're just really good, that I think you guys should definitely read, that I have read, that I will read a million times more. Odds are I'm going to talk about in my wrap up at the end of this year, having reread at least one of those books, because they're just, all of them, I think, in the way that I relate to, they make my soul feel full. And I don't know if that's relatable for anyone else who reads books and who's really into stuff like that, but I can't really describe it in any other way. Like, even though half of these books are so sad, I think actually in every single one of these books as I've read them, I have cried to some degree. They are like tear your heart out books, because I get so emotionally tethered to things so easily, but they're just so good. That's one of the best qualities about them, is that they draw me in so much that I can't help but cry out of either sadness or anger or happiness in some way reading these books. And if you can just sit down and watch a TV show or a movie, or pick up a book which is literally just like letters on a fucking piece of paper, and have it draw that kind of emotion and that kind of investment out of you, that is what I love about art. And it is. Books are art. You can't change my mind. No one will. Like I said, that's it. I won't drone on any longer, but if you have got a book that kind of relates to any of these in a way that you think I should read because I'd enjoy, please tell me in the comments. I'm always looking for more books. Not that I should, I have a problem. But anyway, leave a comment, leave me a like, and if you want to see more of my content, specifically around the new stuff that I'm doing around books and video games, please subscribe. I upload every Sunday at 7 AM Brisbane time, so I will see you there. Bye guys.